After a grueling offseason, we are just about there, Nets fans. Media Day is tomorrow. Training camp and official practices begin Tuesday with media availability and so much more to come. We can finally say the Nets season is on the horizon, but how will one of the youngest and most important pieces of the 2025 draft play in his rookie year? We find all that out and so much more coming up. Welcome into the Brooklyn Boys Show. Thank you all so much for joining us on Sunday, September 21st. You guys are the best. Smash the like and hit subscribe on our road to 500 subscribers. Have any questions for Reed and I? Throw those in the chat. We'll get to those in the back end of the show. But I introduce to you senior editor at Sports Illustrated, Mr. Reed Wallach. Reed, thank you so much for sparing some time joining the show.
Yeah, happy to be here. Long-suffering fan, excited about what's going to come in the next few years. But yeah, happy to be here, happy to chat it up.
Absolutely, and appreciate you sparing some time with us. You can follow Reed and all his stuff. Those are in the description below, so hit those up if you haven't done so yet. Puts out great Nets content, puts out great sports content. His links are in the description. Appreciate you so much for hopping on, and long-suffering fan. Hopefully that rebuild shapes the Nets to be something in the future, but for now, this is just a team looking at probably a top 3 pick on the horizon in the 2026 season. But one of the key factors this season is going to be developing the draft class. And last time we had a guest on, we talked about Yegor Gioman and what he could do with his rookie season. But now we go to probably a more interesting player, someone that the Nets are going to get to uncover, and we're going to see uh, so many different forms of in Jordi Fernandez's system. And that is the 19th pick in this draft out of France, Nolan Traoré. Reed, just your initial reactions when the Nets took him with the 19th pick. Were you a little bit concerned because they were fresh off the Dioman pick? And a lot of fans thought they wouldn't even be picking here and that they would trade back up into the lottery with this pick.
Yeah, I would say a mix of confusion, a little bit of anger. Traore wasn't really on my short list of guys. I mean, with 5 first-round picks, to pick him at 19 really didn't make much sense. But ultimately, I kind of think that this year's draft went completely in a different way than I would have personally attacked it. So maybe I just have to accept that what I want just wasn't what the Nets were looking for. So I was going to be left a little confused and a little, I guess, disappointed anyway. So once I kind of wrapped my head around that after, a little bit of time being upset, at what the social team was calling NT. I think we got to come up with a better nickname for that for sure. That's first and foremost. But I think, again, this is like you need to look macro at what the Nets were doing in this draft. They used all 5 of their first round picks. That's the most in NBA history. And at least how I look back and what I see, the Nets were just throwing darts, right? This is the beginning of a rebuild. Like the Nets have been leading to this for several years, and now this is the first year they're really going to implement it. And they said this, okay, we got 5 first-round picks. Let's use them all. Let's hope a few of them hit, because ultimately, the further you get from the top of the draft, it's more and more of a dart throw, or it's less likely that you're going to find an impact player. So let's try and hope we hit on 2, 3. That's probably a successful draft if 3 of these guys make it to their second contract with the Nets and are rotation players. At least I would say. So can Nolan Traoré be one of those? Maybe. I don't know. I'm not really counting on it, to be honest, but we'll see. I mean, look, this is a guy who's super explosive, loves to play in the open court, can't really shoot, decent instinct as a pick and roll ball handler. But again, this is where it kind of runs contradictory what I think, because there's only one ball, right? How many times is Traore gonna be handling the ball in the pick and roll, right? So again, little confused. Will he get the reps? I hope so. We drafted him in the first round, so I'm hoping that he's gonna get at least bench minutes. I don't want to see him in Long Island for the most part. That would be a concerning sign. He is pretty young, but I would like to see him with the pro team, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And I think I'm also looking for him to spend, at least 3 quarters of the team up in Brooklyn. But I also think that maybe that's not directly where his minutes come right at the front end of the season. Obviously, I think we're all expecting the Nets to be sellers at the deadline, so maybe this team significantly decreases. They find a fit for Cam Thomas. Maybe they even find a place for Terrence Mann to go. And then you're looking at more and more minutes on the back end of the year for these young guys to get to grow and develop. I guess you made a couple good points there that I want to touch on, which is number one, I think you're right. Like this pick and this entire draft was sort of Sean Marks in an entirely different state than what anyone would have thought. And I feel like that's kind of how he's been played out as a Nets GM. But his thought process is, I got to try and stick around here as long as possible. The best odds of me finding, a couple guys to build the foundation of this Nets team is to have the most picks possible. And quantity over quality was clearly what Sean Marks was going for when he didn't trade up at all, which was surprising to me, surprising to almost every Nets fan out there. So, yes, I was a bit confused at the time, but it makes sense. And there was a key on international prospects. Obviously, that's the way the NBA is trending these days. So, Sean Marks hops right on board with that, with multiple international prospects. I think 3 out of the 5 were. So, when you think about it from that end, it makes sense from Sean Marks' perspective. The real question is how Nolan Traoré gets used. So let's get into a couple of his key components that make you, when you look at what he's done over in France, over in the EuroLeague, it puts a smile on your face. A couple of these traits, he's able to get downhill, attack the rack. His playmaking, strength, and speed all sort of combined into this guy that's not going to shoot the ball first, but who could be a big time asset on this floor. And I think it's going to be extremely interesting to see how this Nets team is able to weave him and Yegor Giemman onto the court at once.
Yeah, I think that's a super interesting part of all this because when the Nets drafted Yegor at 8, at least in the instant wake is, okay, Nets are going to try and use him as their hub on offense and try and run everything through him. But again, I don't know if that makes sense with Traoré on the floor because then now you have one guy who's really slender on defense, and if he's the primary ball handler, and then another guy who's probably a little undersized on defense. So I don't know if that's a perfect match. But then we get to Summer League, and they have Yegor chucking it from deep. Doesn't really handle the ball at all. Doesn't really take it to the rim. Doesn't get a foot in the paint at all. So now, again, that's like it's small sample size. It's Summer League, but I do think that the Nets, especially, that's something you might want to key in on is, okay, they're using Summer League and playing all these guys. What is maybe the coaching staff trying to do with them, and what are they trying to work on in some live game reps with the team? If they are more of a believer in Yegor's shot, which is what all the talk was about in the pre-draft and post-draft process. No, this kid's a good shooter. We believe in his shot. He shot it so well in all the workouts. So maybe they're trying to make Traoré the primary ball handler and Yegor more of a spot-up threat secondary ball handler. That could be kind of interesting. But again, I wonder if these two are kind of redundant with each other. And like Ben Seraph as well kind of falls into all this mix. But Traoré, again, there's not much talk of his shot. His shot definitely stagnated in France in his second year. He had a good year 2 years ago, was seen as a lottery pick. Then he kind of stagnated, plateaued this past year in France. So again, were the Nets saying, okay, bad run. He's still really young. He could really get better. We believe in what he showed prior to this. Or was it more like, was that, you're taking a chance, right? You're taking a gamble on which one was good, which one's the truth. The one 2 years ago where he was really efficient, or the one last year where he struggled a bit and his shot didn't really seem to take any strides. Nets are putting a lot of faith in their development and their ability to maybe turn some of these, let's call them so-so shooters. I won't say they're minor shooters. They probably are seen as that, but let's call them so-so, on them becoming plus shooters. That's a lot of belief and development. And again, you bring up Sean Marks. He's taken all these guys. I mean, I'm pretty adamant that I think Sean Marks should have been fired already. So
yes,
maybe he's trying to save his job. Maybe he's trying to save his job. But I mean, look, the guy's the third longest tenured GM in the NBA. So Yeah, I think there's plenty of qualified people out there that could do what he's doing. So, look, again, he's trying to salvage his job, and we'll see if these guys pan out. But like to me, the most important thing is I got to see it on the court. I don't want to hear about like practice reports and everything. I'd like to see Traoré at least get some reps so we could really see it in action more than practice.
100%. I mean, on Sean Marks, like the way I look at it is, you're right. He's making like all these minimal deals. Like you're stacking up second round picks. Like, sure, that's great at the end of the day, but if you really have to like sign and waive like five guys in one day so you can reach the salary floor because you've mismanaged this pot of money. But it's not only that, it's the fact that like he's stacking all these second round picks for like a guy like Haywood Highsmith, who's a plus for this team. I will tell you that. But how about you do something with those second round picks? That doesn't mean anything to me, if you're just gonna blow them all away. So I think to me, Sean Marks has this draft and next draft to save his job. Otherwise, I mean, he should have been out the door a long time ago. The way that big three broke up to me. And so he is truly on his last straw. I couldn't tell you how Joe Tsai feels about that. I don't have my ear in the door, but I can't really see a world in which the Nets are completely comfortable with him as their GM and his seat's not at all getting warm. So that's what I'll say about Sean Marks. He's got to execute in the draft. And also that 2026 season after this upcoming draft when the Rockets own the rights to the Nets pick, that's going to be such an interesting season because do you try and, quickly run through the rebuild, maybe too fast and not truly build your foundation, or do you continue to try and not put a great product out on the floor, but then you're not going to benefit from your pick at the end of the day? So it doesn't matter how bad you are, you're not getting the benefit of that season. So I think that's where Sean Marks' job truly lies to me. I think this season is probably safe for him. But when that contract has to renew in 2, 3 years, that's when he is really on the warm seat. What you said about the Nets before the Sean Marks point, I think what I take away from the draft from Summer League, I think it might have been the Nets trying to sort of toy around with what Yegor could do in the Summer League and less of the actual role he'll fit into once season starts and once the games actually start counting for Jordy Fernandez. I think they're confident in what he can do as a passer, and I think that's the reason they probably reach on him at 8 and frankly reach on Traoré at 19. I'd call them both reaches after the redundancy of the draft and getting three guards there that are not shoot first and then another 3 and D wing in Drake Powell. But I think what they were doing with Yegor and focusing on that was what can you be if we were going to give you some run at the 3. But I think at the end of the day, they moved back to him running the point come the start of the regular season. Um, and eventually you may move on to see him develop into a true 3-point shooter. And once the Nets get comfortable there, but I think that there's no way he starts off this NBA season, at the 2 or at the 3. I think he's the primary ball handler.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't see a world again. It seems if these two are going to play together, and maybe we shouldn't treat these two as the same, and we should look back to kind of what I was alluding to, where these are all dart throws, right? And they're hoping that a few of these guys hit. Maybe
Right.
they aren't as tied together as we should treat them, and that's fine, I guess. But to me, you got to put like a semblance of a team out there, and it seems like the early returns are that Yegor is going to play a little bit more off ball, and Traoré might have some reps as a primary ball handler. Again, maybe they believe in the shot and it flips that way, but that's what the early returns are. And again, I don't know if I agree with that, but look, they're the professionals, not me. So I'm just hoping it works out in the long term.
Yeah, maybe this Nets front office isn't looking to stack up these guys and all build a foundation with them, but more of see them as what they can do as individuals and whether they're
Mhm.
guys worth building around in the future. Smash the like and hit subscribe if you haven't done so yet. Road to 500 subscribers. We're only a couple away here on the channel. Hitting the like button does just the same. Share this with friends and family. You can find Reed's information, his Twitter and stuff in the description. Follow him over there. Let's sort of move into what Traoré can do this year. I'm so keened in on the defensive upside. Like, can he use that athleticism to sort of play a role that Zaire Williams did last year? Is something I look at. Like, he's not as big. He's only 6'4", 185, I think it is. But I think he should be able to play against shifty point guards that the NBA or shifty shooting guards that the NBA is filled with. Obviously, it's going to be a tough task and a big leap in transition, but his defensive versatility should be extremely interesting to me. But Reed,
Yeah.
overall, or do you want to touch on that?
No. I continue.
Overall, what does a realistic season for Traoré look like? Is he playing 70 plus games at the Brooklyn level? Is he scoring double digits like he was over in France? And is he able to snag 4 or 5 assists a night?
And look, we could be optimistic and hope that he does that. I'm going to lean towards him probably being shuttled through Long Island, back and forth from Long Island early in the year. I'm hoping that as the Nets get off to a slow start in the wins and loss column, I hope that they say, okay, let's get him from Long Island to Brooklyn, and we feel comfortable enough with him getting out on the floor and getting some real minutes. To me, it doesn't have to be even box score stuff where he's scoring double digits or he's dishing out this many dimes. It's kind of more like feel for me, like, is he shooting above the league average from three on a healthy rate? Is his steal percentage above, like, around league average? Because, like you said, he's got plus length. Wouldn't say he's huge, but he's a guard defender. Can he stay in front of some of the more shiftier ball handlers out there? I think that's ultimately where his role is going to be on the defensive side. Can he show some upside there? I mean, those are some of the things I'm looking for. Again, it's not like the Nets are going to be terrible next year, and that's all good. I mean, I don't think the Nets are in desperate need of getting a top 3 pick in the next draft.
100%.
They need one of AJ, Boozer, or Peterson. So again, this season's a failure if they don't get in the top 3. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. So to me, it's, can Traoré show that he can be on the next version of the Nets and, not necessarily help them win or anything, but just show some NBA characteristics? Because I do think it's fair to say that, like, it kind of looks toolsy right now, but it's fair to be a little concerned. Can he translate to the next level? So again, what I'm looking for is, can he showcase a average shot? Don't even need to be above average shot. I know the athleticism will be there. Like, to me, like, when I'm looking at younger guys, look, he had a high turnover rate, but, like, doesn't really bother me as much because, like, if you watch some of his games in France, a lot of the turnovers were, like, the right read. They were making, he was handling the ball in the pick and roll, and, like, he was at least looking in the right spots. Like, obviously, you don't want that to continue where you're turning it over and 20 some odd % when the ball's in your hands. But at a young age, to have the ball a lot and to make those reads, I think with time, the execution catches up with the instinct. So, like, that doesn't bother me as much. And, like, again, if he's going to turn the ball over a lot, like, that doesn't really bother me right now. The kid's really young and the Nets are going to be terrible. So I'd rather see him try it and him turn it over than, like, him missing the open guy on the roll or something. So again, I'm looking more on, like, the abstract type and trying to see, like, okay, like, this guy has NBA feel and NBA traits that can get better with age because he's still super young. Like, again, like, if he's going to come out, he's going to play in, like, 30 games and shoot 25% from 3 and clearly not belong, like, at all. Like, that's super concerning because you probably just wasted a pick when you could have maybe traded that for something down the road or something. That's my opinion.
100%. I think the efficiency numbers are going to be key this year. I agree that the turnovers aren't going to bother me as much, but what would bother me is that, God forbid, this Nets team is keeping around Cam Thomas for a full year and he is just eating into minutes of these young guys and not letting them develop. I was hoping he would be traded before training camp begun so this could all get resolved, but considering that it starts in less than 24 hours, in about 20 hours, 18 at this point, is when training camp begins. That's clearly not how this is going to go down. And unfortunately, it seems like there's not many bidders out there on the market for him. He obviously has the no trade clause that he's able to waive. So he has the power, over his own decision at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But as training camp approaches, Reed, this Nets team, Sean Marks has juggled with cap limbo recently. He has tried his best to get over, made in a couple of cheap trades. He got Kobe Buffkin for cash. And of course, earlier in the offseason, Haywood Highsmith, but he's a guy who will start the season injured. What specifically are you looking for throughout training camp? What guys do you want to earn a role in this Nets team? And they still have a two-way spot open. Who do you think is going to earn that?
I'm really hoping that Danny Wolf pans out. He's a guy at
Me too.
Michigan that was super unique and really had, again, like the Nets are a blank slate right now, and I think that there's a world where Danny Wolf can. Sure, he's probably going to be a terrible defender, but this is a guy who played point guard for a really
Right.
high end offense in
At
Michigan.
7 feet tall.
Yeah. So this is a really unique player. And if you're able, like, this is actually my favorite pick of all the Nets picks because this is the type of dart throw that when you have 5 first round picks, you can actually do. You can take a
Yes.
shot on this guy.
For
Maybe
sure.
he clicks. Maybe he turns into an Alperen Sengun type where he handles the ball a lot, has really good touch and feel. I mean, look, like, yes, he had a very, very high turnover rate, but again, this is someone that is he probably like it's probably more likely than not he ends up not being a rotation player because he can't stay on the floor, can't gets just attacked on defense. But look, like I can't help but say, but like Jokic was a bad defender when he came out. I mean,
Yeah.
this like Wolf is a very high end passer for his size, runs up and down the floor at a really high tempo. This is a Michigan offense that ran super fast, and he played next to another 7-footer in Vlad Golden. So again, is it gonna like obviously I'm talking really high, like I'm comparing him to Sengun, who is like basically an all-star, and Nikola Jokic, who's the best player in the NBA. So I know that obviously I'm shooting really high, but again, my thesis on the Nets is that they're gonna be terrible, and this is a chance for you to really kind of see who sticks. I think Wolf, I'm really hoping could at least get some chances to play. Like I actually think like I don't really think Drew Timmy's an NBA player, but like if the Nets are really going to go down that road, or even Claxton for that matter, like
I think they keep Timmy around just
so do
because,
I.
like,
But even Claxton, who I think eventually the Nets are going to have to part ways with, he has
mm,
a nice contract and ultimately probably isn't hanging around for the next version of this team. It's kind of just like wasting away. But I do think Danny Wolf and Claxton, for example, those two can play on the floor together with Wolf's ability to handle the rock. So, like, again, I'm not crazy high on a lot of these guys that they drafted, but I do see something in Wolf. Does it pan out? Probably not, but is it worth a shot? Like, yeah, to me, when you're playing from here, yes, I do think that it's actually pretty exciting. And hopefully it works out because then you're really onto something with a unique, like, the Nets right now, it's just a blob. There's no real substance to this team. It's a bunch
yes,
of random pieces that don't necessarily fit.
yes,
Whereas the hope is when the Nets get to April and their season ends, the hope is like the Nets leave with saying, all right, we know that some of these guys are going to be around here. Like 3 of these guys are going to be on the team long term. And we could start building around those guys and like hopefully we do well in the draft next year. And like I know you brought up the Houston trade. To me, the draft in 2 years isn't as good, I should say. So I
yes.
definitely don't think rush steps. Like, look, if the pick's great, pick's great. I've lived through Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown being taken
Oh my God,
with the Nets pick. So like
the
nothing
Paul
really.
Pierce trade, yes.
Yeah. So I don't really get bothered by those things. You gotta take your lumps. Like this is the bed you made. But like the hope is like a guy like Danny Wolf or even Yegor or Traoré, who we were talking about. We could say in April, I come back on the podcast, like, let's review the season. It's like, well, the Nets have 3 or 4 nice guys that can maybe not be stars, but hopefully the Nets do well in the lottery. They get their real like star prospect. And then like this team kind of starts to take shape a little bit. And look, if it's Danny Wolf, then look, like you're kind of starting to look like something.
100%. I think what I would say about Danny Wolf, an extremely intriguing prospect just because he's so big, but he moves like a guard and he plays like one too. I agree. I really hope this Nets team plays with tempo this year. Like
Oh
that's
yeah.
like if there's one fit for this Nets team, is that they should be able to stretch the floor. They're not going to go big. Like, we've seen the Nets be comfortable with, something ridiculous. Like, KD used to be the tallest guy on the floor, during that era. And that Sean Marks is not keen in on keeping a true center on the floor at all times. And really that falls on Jordy Fernandez. And I do think that, like, the Nets wouldn't be uncomfortable with Noah Clowney, per se, running at the 4 or at the 5. So that'll be interesting. What you said about Nick Claxton, I agree with. 4 years, $100 million is a workable contract. I think that there's many teams interested in a guy who can anchor down the paint, rebound, and play solid defense on the interior. The problem is the center position is evolving to be able to shoot from the outside, which Day'Ron Sharpe has tried to do. Maybe not as effective as the Nets have hoped in years prior, but he's at least tried. He's working towards it. You never know. Obviously, it's going to be a stretch. There's a lot of things that Danny Wolf can develop. One of them can be perimeter shooting, and if he can, sort of follows the trajectory of the modern NBA center, or what the modern NBA center will grow into be. Nick Claxton, however, doesn't really fit that mold. Like, you're just looking for a fit where they need somebody who can rebound, who can score within a 6-foot radius of the basket. But other than that, you can't look for that much out of the guy. But to me, I don't think Nick Claxton gets moved at the deadline. He's not a deadline piece. I say this all the time. Sean Marks is like a very particular guy in a sense where he loves Nick Claxton. He's basically shielded him from all trade rumors. He doesn't want any part of that. It's clear that when he gave Claxton the contract and the fact that he's at a bad season, I'm sure he'll get asked about it tomorrow, but he has a ton of faith in Nick Claxton. He does not want to trade him. Despite what we think, he wants him to be on this team long term, and it kind of showed he's a very particular guy when you had the money to pay Cam Thomas, but you blundered that entire situation, and he comes back on the 1 year, $6 million qualifying offer, and his relationship with the Brooklyn Nets is ruined. So Sean Marks, somebody who I think his time with the Nets has run out, and you can move on from him now, sure, but what he's done has been done. He has set you up in a situation to get that top 3, top 2, hopefully number 1 overall pick in the 2026 draft. And he already spent those 5 first-round picks. So whether it falls under his control, whether it falls under the next regime, Nolan Traoré's development, Nolan Traoré and the rest of this draft class's future with the Brooklyn Nets is set. And now it just comes down to execution. And yes, this is going to be a bad Brooklyn Nets team, but no doubt, still extremely exciting. And it's been a long, grueling offseason. I'm super excited to get back to it. Just a couple more weeks, baby, and then the Nets travel to Charlotte to officially kick off the season.
Yeah, it's honestly, and I mean, look, I'm talking pretty grim about the Nets season, and I don't think that this team is going to be good at all. I think I've made that pretty clear.
Do you have a win prediction for them?
Hopefully, like 12, just to ensure you got the worst pick. But no, I think in today's NBA, with the way the Nets offense is likely going to be 3-point reliant, I do think the Nets are likely going to stumble into a handful of wins, but I think their win total projection, I want to say it's in the low 20s.
I would say 20 and a half last time I checked, which is a little high.
I would say
I'm more like 18-ish.
I would say plus or minus 3 wins in each direction. They're in like that 17 to 22 bucket. Yeah. Because you could just stumble into a few wins despite easily being the most or the least talented roster in the NBA.
Like the Houston game last year, for example, when they scored 2 miraculous threes in the span of 6 seconds to pull that one out.
Yeah, there's just it's a lot of randomness and flukiness. Yeah. So like they'll stumble into a few wins, and that's okay. But it is exciting, at least like from like last year to me, the team, it almost became like, sure, they won too many games early, and it kind of like they kind of wasted the whole exercise of tanking. And also just there wasn't a lot, like, to me, I was watching a lot of players that I knew weren't going to be on the next version of the team. So it kind of was like they were being led by guys that I knew the Nets weren't actually building around, like Cam Johnson, for example. And
right.
I think Cam Johnson, I think those guys are good players. don't get me wrong, those guys are good and all, but like
For sure.
when I'm a fan trying to build something and I know those guys are going to be gone in February or in June, it's kind of tough to get excited about those things because I'm pretty much outwardly rooting for you to lose, but like play up your trade value. Like it was just like a weird thing.
Right.
Now having some young guys on the team, like I'm getting rookies. Like the Nets haven't had really true rookies in this situation in a really long time. Like the Nets were in a huge like they were trying to build a contender. So like when Cam Thomas played or Claxton played, like that's cool and all, but like
Yes.
I'm watching Kevin Durant and James Harden and Kyrie. It's all different.
Right.
So I'm kind of excited to watch some of these games and go in with no expectations and kind of see where these guys really develop. It's kind of an exciting thing. Like again, I think they're going to lose a lot, but I'm not going to be super stressed over the result. I'm just going to watch these guys and hope that they could show me something, and it's pretty exciting. So it is exciting. Happy that the offseason's over. I can't listen to more people talk about Cam Thomas and what his contract situation is. I really just don't care. So happy we could stop talking about that. I'm sure it's going to be the topic of du jour for the media tomorrow at media day, but pretty pumped that can watch some of these young guys. I really hope that they're part of the rotation, and I could see for myself if they're any good or not, and if Sean Marks is really onto something.
Sad at yourself. Like it feels so weird to be this excited for a season you know the team's going to be terrible in. But you're right. You didn't have a pick last year, so you actually get to fully see rookies develop for the first time under Jordy Fernandez.
Yeah.
And we'll get to a couple of your questions to wrap. But the first one I want to touch on here from Claude Smith. He asks, will Jordy get a long-term contract? That's what I thought was so special out of last season. I didn't take away that Dorian Finney-Smith can go be a contending piece, that Dennis Schroeder is going to get traded 5 times on deadline day. That's not what I took away, but I took away that good coaching elevates teams, and that's what Jordy Fernandez did. In the beginning of last season, they had no business taking the Celtics to overtime twice, playing the 12-0 undefeated Cleveland Cavaliers at that time down to the last possession, pulling out a couple absurd wins to begin the season. Jordy Fernandez, to me, truly cemented himself, and it was within the first month of the season for the Brooklyn Nets. Like, sure, things went downhill when his starting lineup was a half-injured Trendon Watford in game 62 of the season. Like, but that doesn't mean anything to me. Jordy Fernandez got the most out of his guys. He squeezed the orange for every ounce of pulp it had. And to me, that was so important. It was only 1 year, but it showed so many signs of optimism. To me, yes, I am perfectly ready to say Jordy Fernandez is the long-term Nets head coach. I loved what he did last year. I'm super excited to see what he can do with a fresh, full 5. I'm calling him the starting 5, the Flatbush 5, as a lot of Nets fans call him, worth of rookies. This is going to be so exciting.
Yeah, I think it's pretty hard not to be excited about Jordy as a head coach. Rave reviews. Clearly, the Nets overperformed last year, and now we got to see him with like a true developmental idea. So, I'm pretty excited to see Jordy in terms of contract. He's still got a few years left. I'm sure, the Nets aren't rushing to make any decision on him. So, I'm sure when it comes around, the Nets will lock him up, and hopefully, when it comes time for the Nets to lock him up, there's a little bit more traction on the roster.
Absolutely. We will get to one final question here before we let you go, Reed. Jonathan asks, Lauri Markkanen came up in a trade article recently as a trade option for Brooklyn. Is Markkanen for the right price? Is he tradable for the right price and what he could be? Certainly, the Nets have the capacity to trade for him. They can give him whatever contract. They can give up trade pieces in terms of draft capital. I think Utah would certainly be interested in moving on. He's someone I would like to have for when this Nets team gets better, but I just can't see a world in which he fits in at the current moment.
Yeah, I don't see Markkanen playing a role here. I don't think the Nets are really in star trades for a little bit. Again, I think the Nets are going to have to hit on a few draft picks before they start building up like that. So again, hopefully it's a team that's losing for much of this year. Hopefully it's a team that's winning come lottery night, and they get really their blue chip prospect coming in a year from now, basically about to start. I think that's where we really start to see this team start to take shape. Hopefully, at least.
Absolutely. I just don't think there's a world in which this Nets team dives right back into the deep end of the superstar draft pool and goes after Trae Young, goes after Giannis. It makes no sense, but we will begin to wrap here. Mr. Reed Wallach joining us on the show, writer for Sports Illustrated. Reed, you're the best, man. Tell everyone where they can find your stuff, and I super, super, super thank you and appreciate you coming on the show. It means a ton. Thank you.
Yeah, happy to be here. You can just follow me at Reed Wallach. I'm usually just rambling about the Nets or college football typically, but yeah, you can follow me there. And yeah, thanks Josh for having me on. Great, always great chatting Nets. So thanks again for having me on.
Absolutely. You're the best. We talked all things Nolan Traoré and looked ahead for the Nets season. We will see you all on the next one. Nets training camp starts tomorrow with Media Day. Practices are Tuesday, and we are 2 weeks away from the Nets' first preseason game. Have a good one, everybody, and let's go Nets. Good night, stay safe, and have a great one.